Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another weekly C3 Foundation stream. How is everybody doing today? I see we've got some folks here in the chat and watching, which is great. We are glad you decided to spend part of your day with us. We hope that what we're about to cover is beneficial, whether you are in recovery or not. Self-care is something that everyone can use and find helpful in their life. So with me today is our founder and CEO, Claudia Christian, and we would love to have you ask your questions all throughout. Self-care is such a diverse topic because there's so many different ways to look at it and so many benefits for it, that the more conversational this is with you watching, the better it's going to be, because we want your questions, we welcome them, and we would love to answer them, because if you have a question, I guarantee you somebody else who's watching this either live or in the replay is going to have that question too. So let's have a lot of fun today. Let's be very interactive. And we are so glad to see you. I mean, right now, Claudia, we've got Nat out there. We've got Joyce. We've got Mud Forces there. Natalie's back. Annette's back. A lot of our great consistent faces out there. Great supporters, and we're glad to see everybody.
Nice to see everybody. Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny.
So, Claudia, from your point of view, just how do you personally define self-care?
I'm looking at it right here, Jenny. I know this sounds really silly, but the act, for me, the act of making a beautiful cup of loose leaf tea in a beautiful cup with a beautiful saucer that brings back memories of England to me. I have my special maple syrup in there. And the fact that I take the time, that I stop and say, you know what, I would really fancy a cup of tea right now. And I do it. I don't just throw a bag in the water and walk away. I do a ritual. I light the candle underneath the thing so it stays warm. And that is an act of self-care to me. And I don't feel guilty about it. I feel like it's something that I deserve. It also breaks up my day in a beautiful way. Like, I have my morning tea, I have my afternoon tea. And it's just something that is an act of self-care for me. I've definitely taken on a lot more self-care. You have been through my burnout. Nat has been through my burnout. I take the time now to work out. This morning I did my workout, even if it's just 20 minutes or a half an hour. I take that time to work on my body, to stay strong, to stay healthy, and to get away from devices. That's another huge thing. I really, really am readily will admit, and I've said this to you a million times, Jenny, I'm an email addict. It takes a huge amount of discipline for me to put the phone down and walk away from the email. So that the ways I do that is to get out and to do things, to take walks in nature. But even then, I'm still very drawn to it, I must admit. But my workouts, I don't look at email during that time. So at least there's a little respite right there. And of course, when I sleep, phones are not allowed in my bedroom. No devices are allowed in my bedroom unless I'm watching a movie on my iPad. That's the only thing I allow.
Well, I'm going to put up a definition I found of self-care online. And self-care, defined by dictionary.com, is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being and happiness, in particular during periods of stress. Now, to me, the key in that is taking an active role. Yeah. But you talk about, how some of us have been there through your burnouts. How many burnouts have you been through of mine?
Yes.
The emails that say, okay, Claudia, I have to take a day because I have to take 2 days because I'm fried. Self-care is so incredibly hard.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to make this, before we dive into any of the aspects of this, I want to be really clear on something. It's wonderful to suggest to people to take self-care, but I don't want anybody out there feeling like if they're not doing these things on a regular basis that they're inadequate or failing. Because another stressor is, I'm not taking the bubble baths like everybody on Instagram. I'm not eating the chocolates in the afternoon like the people on Facebook. I'm not going for the walk in nature like everybody else. So I'm a failure, and I'm not self-caring. Oh my God. And then you get yourself all caught up in the fact that you're not providing self-care for yourself. So I want to preface this by saying this is a judgment-free, shame-free zone. We're simply here discussing the attributes and the possibilities in life where one can take moments and make yourself a little bit mentally and physically healthier.
Exactly, because self-care is not all chocolate and bubble baths.
No.
You know, as Nat says, self-care can be something as simple as remembering to take your meds.
Yes, and you know, Nat is a very good example of someone who does self-care through art. Art releases, it helps with cortisol levels, it releases endorphins. Creating art is an absolute wonderful example of self-care. Anytime you create music, if you draw, if you take your mind and focus on something other than social media, other than work, other than just focus on drawing something, focus on making watercolor. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you are horrible. I'm not a good artist, but if I make myself draw something, suddenly I am in that world. Reading a book, another great example of self-care, because you're focusing on the book, you're putting yourself into a new world. But I know Nat, you know, I'm sure a lot of anxiety and stress has been relieved by copious amounts of artwork going. And Nat's actually doing a coloring book now. The proceeds are going to C3 Foundation. So thank you for that, Nat.
Yeah, she's literally turned a self-care act into something that gives forward. And we have a couple of people out there for the very first time today, so we want to welcome Kelly and JM. We're glad you guys came out today and spending some time with us. Definitely ask some questions if you want to. We've got some more people, like Jess is mentioning, also tea and editing pictures is a great self-care for her. Mudforce does cross-stitch embroidery. All of these things are great things, and one of the keys, especially if you're having a hard time with self-care, is to start with something that you're already doing and find a way to do it longer. Do it more. I love seeing, and Natalie says her self-care is taking her pill before she drinks.
That is the ultimate TSM self-care, because that is your health, that is your freedom pill, that is maintaining your compliance. I think that is a wonderful act of it. And when you think about it, it's kind of strange that we have to allocate time nowadays for doing the things that when we were younger and before we were inundated with social media and emails and everything that we used to take for granted. For instance, I always read. I read as a child, I read in my young adulthood, I read into my 20s, 30s. I always had a book under my arm, always. And now I have to allocate that time, like, oh, I'm gonna read tonight for an hour. As if that's some, you know, as if it's like making a cup of loose leaf tea, like, wow, I'm going to read. But I don't take it for granted, but I do notice when I don't have the time, or make the time, I should say. I don't make the time to read. And reading is such a wonderful self-care action.
So in general, why is self-care so important for people?
It, on so many levels, first of all, the act of taking the time to stop the committee in the head, the chatter, the incessant chatter. If you want to call that mindfulness or meditation or just drawing oneself to a quiet place, even with a breathing exercise, or that moment where you shut your eyes and you address yourself, you say, hello, Claudia. You know, that's what I do. When my mind is starting to chatter so much and I'll be driving and saying, oh, I got to do this. And so called. Oh, wait, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And I'll notice all the chatter in my head and I'll just stop. And I'll take that moment and address myself and try to clear my mind. That moment of self-care, self-awareness brings everything down. All the anxiety, all the stress, you'll find your voice even drops. We talk about this a lot. So these acts are good for your health, first of all. Now, you take that a step further and say, I'm going to take 10 minutes and just stand outside in my yard. I don't have time to go to a park. I don't have time to do anything. I'm going to sit like I did when I was a child, cross-legged outside, and just be quiet. No phone in my hand, nothing. Just going to sit in the grass for 10 minutes. This promotes health. It's been proven. It is a small act of meditation. It reduces the anxiety chemicals that we release, the cortisol, all of this. It produces serotonin. It makes your mind declutter itself. It's almost like, pressing delete on in your computer, cleaning out the page. It's just a time to clear, and that promotes good mental and physical health.
And as you mentioned, sometimes it's just taking a moment. You're not taking 2-3 hours. Sometimes it's just that small moment, even if it's just 30 seconds of intentional stopping and intentional just take a breath and be in the moment. And it doesn't have to last that long. And yeah, as I was preparing for today, I came across a lot of information that backs up what you just mentioned, is that self-care reduces anxiety and stress.
Right.
So, on that note, take it a little bit further, how all of that plays into why it is critical to do even that moment of self-care while you're in recovery.
In recovery, especially, we once we get rid of, if you're doing TSM and you get rid of the constant chatter of cravings, and you get rid of the constant chatter of that fed into the alcohol use disorder, which is you gotta drink. Oh, where's my next drink? All that noise starts to go away. Well, now you're going to start really feeling things. And I always say the cleaner you get, it can be the more intense it can get. So in other words, what that means is you're starting to really hear and feel and think about things like emotions. When you get your addiction under control, you can actually live life in this manner that other people have been living it and you just didn't know about it because you were stomping down your emotions with a substance. Well, now you have feelings, and people's words can hurt you. Things, you have to process things. So taking that time to say, you know what, I'm starting to feel myself get upset. So I will walk around the house. I'll go outside and walk around the house, and I'm not going to read these emails right now, or I'm going to get off social media right now. That's an act of self-care right there. Something is upsetting you, don't read it. If something is really making you, I had a friend who worked in an office, and they had, and she's going back into the office now that COVID restrictions are lifting. And she had a coworker that just annoyed the heck out of her. And so I taught her, or told her, and she finally started doing it. When it got too much, excuse yourself and go outside of the office building and just walk around once. Just say you're going to the bathroom or something and just take a walk. And she would do it, and it would just make her reset herself, be able to then go in and deal with the day. And she started doing this multiple times a day. And this the thing is, if you ask for what you need, I need to go blow off some steam, I need to get out and get some fresh air. That is an act of self-care because you're taking for yourself what you need.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as stopping long enough to remind yourself, I am important. Yes. What I'm feeling is valid.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And during recovery, you have to take those positions because you have put everything aside for so long. And you are now, your first and foremost and most important challenge and project is your recovery and your health and yourself. That's both mental and physical health. So yeah, those small acts of self-care are imperative.
And it's also good for people to remember that the very act of being in recovery and actively doing what you need to do is in itself an act of self-care, because you are actively looking to better your health and emotional well-being.
Today is an act of self-care. We're doing
Absolutely.
self-care right now because we're talking about it. And by the way, this brings up a good point. Giving back to others is a huge part of self-care. When you get to the point where you can help somebody, and that could be sending them a positive text saying, I hope you kill your exam today. I love you, Mom, sending out just, I'm sending you good vibes, or, hey, how about just I'm thinking about you today. You rock my world, whatever it is. Those little acts of giving joy to other people, or giving back to society, dropping off some clothes at Goodwill, giving to a food pantry, all of that self-care as well. That produces a feeling of really good, rich endorphins in yourself, and you feel like, wow, I've done something good. That's an act of self-care.
Right. And obviously that's when it's on your terms, not when it's being something that you're doing because others expect you to do it, because then it crosses the line. But when you do things that make yourself, if you are doing it because you want to build better, deeper connections, then that's actually exactly what Claudia's talking about. That's self-care because you are trying to build deeper connections. So before we go into more challenges of self-care and more examples, let's take one more look at why self-care is important, but this time for family and friends of people in recovery, because this one can be really challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, the loved ones of people going through a substance use disorder. I've spoken to mothers and fathers and siblings and husbands and wives that are watching their loved ones slowly kill themselves, and their anxiety levels, their stress levels are through the roof. And the first thing I always say to them is, what are you doing for yourself in order to handle this? And they're always usually taken aback, like, what do you mean? It's not about me, it's about them, the one with the drinking problem. I said, no, it's not. This is about you. What are you doing to alleviate the stress that this situation is putting on you?
Yeah, there's a reason the airlines tell us to put our own oxygen mask on first, because if we have nothing left in our tank, if we cannot take care of ourselves, if we let ourselves go to the point where we are physically and emotionally exhausted, it is impossible for us to help support another human being when we can't even do it for ourselves.
Yeah, and that comes along with a lot of guilt for some people. Like, why should I be going to, my yoga class when my sister is dying of alcoholism? Why should, but listen, you're not going to be able to help that individual unless you've helped yourself first. If you're not healthy and calm and loving, and you can't come from that place of being helpful, if you're a mess, if you haven't slept, if you haven't taken care of yourself. Sleep, that's a huge one. Oh, I stayed up all night worrying about my husband. Well, that's not going to help anybody. And I know that's easier said than done. But now we're going to work on your sleep. And the person will say, well, why are you focused on me? My husband's the one with the problem. I'm saying, no.
It's a family problem.
It's a family problem. The only way you're going to be able to help the children through this, help yourself through this, and help your husband through this is if you're healthy, calm, and loving. And you can't be that way if you're exhausted, confused, and angry. So yes, self-care comes down to each and every person's responsibility. And once again, not getting at all judgy or shaming. If you're not doing it right now, there are small ways to incorporate it into your life. I'm not saying that you have to go find a local park right now and do 10 rounds of, or you've got to buy a coloring book right this second. Put these things in your mind and determine what makes you happy, what sparks that little bit of joy, that curiosity in you. Learning is another wonderful thing that is self-care. If you've always wanted to take a tour of the Vatican, but you can't right now, go online and they have virtual tours. Or you've always wanted to speak a language, You don't have to commit to learning one, but you could have fun with 5 minutes a day on Babbel or one of these, apps, or the freebie apps that teach you a couple of words in a language. We talk a lot about daydreaming and fantasizing, and I know that people say, oh, it's a waste of time. I was told often as a kid from adults mostly, why do your head is always in the clouds. But daydreaming and fantasizing, if it's in a positive manner and you're fantasizing about good things or what you would like, or manifesting things in a way, or daydreaming about a favorite trip you took, that is a form of meditation. It's a form of prayer in a way. And it's a wonderful time that you are with yourself in your own mind. And once again, that's something everybody can do. It's free. You just lay down for a couple minutes and imagine your favorite trip. COVID, we're all locked in. Well, if I could go somewhere, where would I go? Take your mind on a journey. Do that for 5-10 minutes. That's self-care.
So let's talk about some of the reasons self-care is so challenging, because I'll be the first to admit I am horrible at it. I'm absolutely horrible at it. And I try, and it's, and honestly, for anyone else who feels the same way as I do, if you're trying, you're on the right track.
Well,
you don't have to be perfect at it.
Hold on a second. Since you joined Instagram, I've been noticing that not only are you cooking beautiful meals for yourself, but you're taking pride in them and photographing them, and you even baked cookies.
Yeah, and they were so good. I just baked some more this weekend.
Okay, so that's self-care. But that's something that you didn't do before. You remember you.
Well, I did it. I just didn't really. I just didn't put it in. I just didn't take a lot of pictures of it.
The first couple of years that you were working with C3 Foundation, I would talk to you many times, and you would say that you forgot to eat.
And that has always been one of my huge issues. And I think part of that is, and I'll jump through my little checklist here, is that for so many people, there is a core fear that taking time for yourself and practicing self-care is selfish.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be any farther from the truth, but knowing that information and moving it into your practice of everyday life, if only you could snap your fingers and say, oh, okay, well, I know this information, so let's make it work now. It's not that easy. But I think a lot of that is societal pressure. I mean, it's huge. We see these inspiration porn things where somebody falls down and then drags themselves for half a mile with a broken leg, and look at how inspiring that never quit attitude is. And it's like, oh, please. You're encouraging people to do more harm to themselves in the name of perseverance and in the name of inspiring other people. And it can be an overwhelming fear that if I take time for me, it must mean I am taking away time from someone else or from something else. And that's
a bit of a martyr attitude.
It really is. It's horrible.
That's like saying, oh, I can't eat. I can't eat. I have so much to do for other people. Well, if you don't eat and then you faint or you get a headache or you feel like crap, you're not going to be much worth to the people anyway. You have to be commonsensical about it. I'm going to take care of myself so that I can then feel good and feel healthy enough to be kind and loving and helpful to other people. Okay, so that's me first, and that's not being selfish. That's just being common sense. I mean, if this isn't functioning, then I can't do anything else for anybody.
Exactly.
So in that way, it's not selfish. And here, once again, we get into the fine line of social media and aspirational videos and all that stuff. Sometimes you look at something and somebody's saying, well, I had to go on this retreat in order to do this, and I'm eating all this organic. And you're thinking, I can't afford that. I don't have the time to go away. I can't buy organic. It's too expensive. just stop it. Stop comparing yourself to other people. This is not a contest. Once again, you don't have to buy fine chocolates and sit in a bubble bath. That's not what we're saying. Saying literally, take the time to edit your photos quietly with some beautiful music, to have yourself a nice cup of tea, to lay down for 10 minutes and fantasize, or take a nap. What's wrong with a 15-minute nap? You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Put some headphones on and listen to an entire album one evening instead of answering emails. Or these are little things that everybody can do. Everybody can afford to do. Like I said, go outside and sit cross-legged for 5 minutes. You know, play some jacks, whatever.
Yeah.
Play with it.
And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that, you know, we feel like so much we have these overwhelming challenges in our lives. And where society hits us with a never enough mentality.
Yeah.
You know, it's never enough.
Yeah.
And I love some of the comments that are starting to come through right now. You know, Joyce said, I think our country is very high stress for most people, likes of workaholic stuff. I think we should have everything shut down for an hour midday. Yeah. Which is actually what I've been trying to do to ensure I take a lunch.
Yes. Do you know that when I was in France at the end of 2018, and I was bitching to everybody about, oh my gosh, I can't believe everything's closed between 12 and 2. Everything's closed. It's so American of me to say that. And then afterwards, I started thinking about it, and you and I spoke about you taking an hour for lunch and just not answering anything and doing. And I thought, what's wrong with taking a 2-hour lunch and living life and being with friends and enjoying good food?
And then coming back all that much more focused and ready to be productive.
Exactly.
I mean, I feel like some of my most productive times have been when I've taken a day or two completely off and just not done anything for 2 days. And I come back and I feel like I'm able to do the productivity of a week in a day when I feel refreshed. And I think that's something that gets overlooked a lot.
Yes, well, that's why when you compare ourselves to Italy and France, who work 30-hour weeks, they're still just as productive as us.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they're not getting stuff done. And people are healthier. They take 4 months at holidays. They take longer maternity and paternity leaves, and they're just healthier as a society because family's first, health is first, and work comes maybe fourth, fifth. It's, you know, you work in order to live. You don't live to work, as
right.
They say.
Yeah, and Kelly says, if we were robots and our responsibility was to protect our human being, we as robots would put ourselves on the charger every single night to ensure we had the energy to take care of our humans, right? Yeah. So be the robot and recharge.
You're so right. You're so right, Kelly. That's a really good analogy. It's so true. This is why we are such a disease-ridden country. People are burning out. They work themselves to death, then they retire and drop dead of a heart attack because they haven't been taking care of themselves for the 35, 40 years that they worked in their job. Now, you know, it's sad. We have to put ourselves first, and health first, and relationships, connection to each other first. That's what being human is all about. Yeah. Not clocking in for, not saying, wow, I worked an 80-hour day. Okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, even professional race car drivers have brakes in their cars because you can't run full throttle all the time. JM says, I struggle quieting the chatter for personal self-care. People-pleasing is all I knew while drinking. Loving this live feed for positive reinforcement.
Okay, so the chatter, that's the committee. And especially for anybody who's actively drinking, you know what I'm talking about. It usually kicks in when the alcohol starts to wear off, about 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 in the morning, and you wake up and the sugar's kicked in, and all of a sudden the doom and gloom chatter comes into your head. I'm worthless, I'm a piece of junk, I'm never going to succeed, everybody hates me, I'm going to lose my house, never going to be able to get a job. I mean, all of that stuff comes in.
And
have faith that it will dissipate.
And on that, I'm going to put up a little tidbit that I found today, again, while preparing, is that failing to practice self-care can lead to increased feelings of hopelessness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true. You have to take things into consideration. It's easier. Listen, I've been there, and anybody who is actively suffering, I'm not trying to come from this place of like, oh, it's all rainbows and butterflies right now, and I can tell you that it's going to get better. That's not the vibe that I'm trying to put out there. What I'm trying to say to you is things generally seem more negative when you're under the influence and when you are strapped and stuck in the cycle of addiction. And that, by the way, that can be an eating addiction. I'm talking about all recovery, any issue, mental illness, all the way down to whatever. If you are in your issue right now, things can seem dire, but it's also a result of being under the influence of a substance or not medicated correctly for a mental issue. So that's when things really start to seem overwhelming. What I'm saying is the more you get those issues under control, the more light will come into your life, and the more you will be able to see that things are possible to conquer. I used to have all these what I thought were overwhelming issues in my life that I would just my committee was screaming at me in the middle of the night saying, you'll never do XYZ. And once I got my drinking under control, all of those things seemed so much easier to deal with. Oh my God, there's 300 emails in my inbox. I'll never be able to answer them. Well, if you're not hungover or drunk, you can go through 300 emails. It's not the most fun, but you get it done. So that's all I'm saying is that things do seem more overwhelming when you're still struggling.
Yeah, and even outside of recovery, for any friends, family, support system that's out there, or anyone who just wants to better their own well-being, when you get yourself into a position of overwhelm, you are increasing your stress level. And science pretty much says that when we have chronic stress, it takes physical tolls on our body, and we cannot make good decisions anymore. We don't see things clearly as they are, because our stress and our overwhelm just clouds everything, and it affects us mentally, it affects us physically. And thankfully, there are some easy, no, I don't really want to say the word easy, but I'm lacking for a better word, common maybe, ways that you can actually you can work on self-care by taking things that you're already doing, hopefully, things like eating and sleeping. Hope you're doing that. And find ways to improve upon what you're currently doing. Because proper sleep and nutrition are absolutely huge. Quality sleep, and I just put this up, I know, Claudia, you're not watching the Twitch channel itself, but I just put up quality sleep reduces stress and it boosts the immune system. So let's talk about that for a little bit. In the realm of self-care, let's talk about sleep, because sleep issues are such a problem, both in and out of recovery, but especially for people who are in the active part of trying to reduce their alcohol.
Sleep issues have really come to the forefront of media and individuals for the past, probably since the internet, since the 90s, the mid 90s. Prior to that, it really wasn't such the focus. I mean, people were stressed out, they experienced burnout, but now you have sleep therapists, sleep hygiene experts, sleep coaches, sleep groups, and it's because we're screwing up ourselves by constantly looking at these lights at night and looking at devices and inundating ourselves with movies and television that are so violent and graphic and loud, listening to, really exciting the brain, as they say. People used to go to bed when the sun went down. And they'd read a little bit and have some, food and go to bed. And they were tired because they did a lot of manual labor. But I would say that during recovery and within recovery and also in normal life, because of all the added stress and anxiety that's occurring in people's lives right now, and also some pretty screwed up eating habits, especially in America, sleep is imperative. And we've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating. Your sleep hygiene, you have to do it regularly. This is a gift for yourself, but it's something that should be a just a go-to thing, and it's very doable. It doesn't, you don't have to go out and buy the weighted blanket and the fancy pillows and all that stuff. You get your room nice and cool. You get it very dark. You can, if you've got to tack up some sheets over the windows, it's very important to be cool, dark, and quiet. And to leave the devices downstairs or in a different room, or just turn them off and put them in your bathroom, whatever you have to do. And use your bedroom as a place to really, really just relax. I've talked about, a lot of people will use sprays and lavender or comfort things. It's stuffed animal from when they were a child. I mean, anything that makes you feel comfortable and safe, and and take that time. If you can't sleep, there are so many meditations, and if you can get something where you can put on a timer, so you're not actually looking at a device, but you can listen to it.
I actually have a function on my phone that at a certain time every night, my phone goes completely grayscale.
Good.
And I have found that, because I mean, as you know, Claudia, I have always had a terrible time trying to sleep. Incredible insomnia. Ended up, I do now use some medication for it, but that's only part of it. I make sure that on most nights, Sunday through Thursday, I am trying to get into my going to bed routine by 9:30. And so now I look at that grayscale and say, oh, if I am awake until the grayscale comes on, then I'm not paying as much attention to my sleep schedule. And it didn't, it wasn't a quick fix. It's been months, but I've finally gotten to the point where I no longer lay in bed for 2 hours struggling to fall asleep. I'm not waking up as much, and I'm waking up a few minutes before my alarm goes off in the morning. And that's something that, again, this was not easy. Regulating your sleep and trying to get into those good habits, sometimes it's such a fight that you feel like you are never going to win the battle.
Oh,
but you just got to keep trying.
Yeah, you've got to train yourself. I used to travel so much that I was dependent on sleeping pills. It was awful. It would take me, I would get such bad jet lag that it would take me weeks on that end. I'd be going, have to work, so I'd have to sleep. However I could fall asleep, I would have to do that because I would have to work a couple days after arriving in another country. And then I'd come back to America and have jet lag for another couple weeks. It was awful. And then getting off the sleeping pills, so much mess. If you don't sleep, it affects everything adversely in your life. It is a horrible, horrible, horrible thing. So insomnia is not a joke, and it's not an overnight fix. So you're going to have to find out what foods you should not eat at night. Clearly, I see people going, well, I stopped drinking coffee at 4 p.m. 4 p.m.? It's way too late. Way too late. No. You don't drink caffeine after noon if you're having sleep issues. So no caffeine, no sugar. You have to make some pretty strong changes until you start to regulate it. Then you can start to add things back in and test it. But definitely you have to watch what you eat, what time you eat, when you exercise. I don't recommend exercising late in the day if you're having sleep issues, because that's just going to give you energy. And I'm a very strong proponent nowadays. I'm learning that just even shutting your eyes for 10 minutes can completely reset you. If you're exhausted by 3 or 4 p.m. and you still have to hustle, you've got things to do that night, just lay down. Just stop whatever you're doing, put a towel over your eyes so no light comes in, go somewhere quiet and dark and just lay down. And even if your mind is spinning and you don't fall asleep, that's fine. Just the act of just calming your body down, no sound, no anything, for 10, 15 minutes is going to refresh you, believe it or not.
And Lynn in our chat says that since she's been drinking much less due to the naltrexone and TSM, she's no longer waking up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, isn't that a wonderful part of it? That is just that was I always called it the hour of the wolf. It was awful. The alcohol would wear off, sugar would kick in, and I would be wide awake at 2 or 3 a.m. And it was horrible. So I'm glad TSM is helping you and that you can get your sleep back on schedule.
And since some people find that that their sleep is disrupted and they get a little bit of insomnia after starting the Sinclair method, how long do you see most people have that issue before it starts to correct itself?
I had that issue when I started TSM. I had it very badly. It kind of scared me. I think it lasted for me just under 2 weeks. And then it just went away and I started sleeping normally again. So I have dealt with people who it lasts a lot less time than that. They'll have like 3 or 4 nights of bad sleep. I can't think of anyone that it's lasted more than a few weeks. So if it's something that is, if you're taking it infrequently, it might take longer for that side effect to dissipate. So for instance, if you're only drinking once a week, then you might have a bad night's sleep that night for quite a few weeks. But if the longer you're on it, the more those will dissipate and the medication will start to sit in the back of your brain. But that definitely is a side effect that is common amongst people. And sleepiness. I had a lot of clients through the years that have said that they take naltrexone and they're just wasted they just can't move, they can't function, they have no energy. But once again, that goes away as well. You're putting a medication in your body gets used to it, so your brain starts to adapt to it, and the side effects dissipate.
And then there's still the disruption from the alcohol itself.
Absolutely. And also people use, they say, well, I don't use alcohol to sleep. Well, you don't know that, but you actually have been using it to sleep, because now your brain is used to the alcohol making you sort of pass out and not fall asleep.
Well, and I think for people, especially with who also drink because of chronic pain.
Yes.
That's another thing, because if you're getting rid of the chronic pain with the alcohol, you're going to fall asleep faster, but you're certainly not going to stay asleep. It's not going to be a good sleep, and the longer you do it, the more disruptive it gets.
Not only that, but you're also causing massive amounts of inflammation, which will probably make the pain worse once you sober up.
Yeah.
Say that. Yeah, it's a vicious cycle, folks. Using a substance to self-medicate for a different issue, whether it's pain or bipolar or whatever it is, it's probably never going to come out to be a happy ending. So, and sleep definitely is very badly affected by alcohol.
So, if you're thinking about to wrap up our sleep talk, what would you say is the smallest, if someone's really, really struggling with trying to get a good night's sleep, what's one small, non-overwhelming thing that a person can start with?
Honestly, and for some people this won't be possible because they either live in a hot place and don't have air conditioning or whatever, but just me dropping the temperature in my bedroom helped enormously. That is one small thing you can do, dropping the temperature in your bedroom down to like 62 degrees. Believe it or not, that helped hugely. Another small thing you can do is try to go to bed at the same time every night. That's just it sounds like a big job. Well, I don't know what I'll be doing on a Wednesday. Just try to say, no matter what, I'm going to do what Jenny does. I'm going to start winding down around 9:30, 10, put on my little sleep clothes, make myself the herbal tea, whatever your little wind down is, do that every night at the same time. if you can. And that's a small act, but I do find that the more consistently I go to bed at the same time, the better quality sleep I get. And that's not possible all the time. Sometimes I'm working, late, and other times I'm exhausted at 9 and I can't keep my eyes open. So I'm not going to force myself to
Right.
stay.
Yeah. And again, there, we don't mean that, at 10:30 every
Yeah.
evening on the dot,
Just
this
start
is
a
what you do.
ritual.
Set
Yeah.
yourself a range, even if to begin with you have to say between 9:30 and 10:30 I will start this. And when you start to consistently get it in that zone, then you can shorten that time. You can adjust it. The decisions you make today are not ones that you are stuck with for eternity without the ability to change your mind to suit what actually works best for you.
Yeah. And by the way, it is a process, because I remember I used to set the stage for sleep, as I put it. So I'd go in my bedroom, I'd draw the curtains, I'd make sure the bedroom was cool, turn on the air if it wasn't, get the bedroom super cool, and I would light a lavender candle. And then I realized after some time that the lavender candle actually was annoying me when the smell of that particular candle. So it was interrupting my sleep as opposed to putting me to sleep. So I switched to essential oils. Now, little changes like that, but I still make an effort to go and prepare the room for sleep.
Yeah.
And that is a mindful act of saying, I'm going to draw the curtains, make sure the room is cool, make sure my bed is all fluffed up and ready. And that's going to put me in a really nice headspace to get ready to sleep. So that's what it's for. I don't even have a TV in my room because I just find everything distracting. So it's a place to recover. And by the way, speaking of sleep and the importance of it, and we will stop speaking about sleep, but everything has to heal at night. Your body has to heal. Your brain has to rest. Everything is so important for your liver, for its function, to get rid of all the toxins of the day. Every single part of your body, that's why we sleep, has to have that recovery period. And if you have been abusing it with alcohol, then it's especially important for you to get some quality sleep.
And I dropped a link into the chat of an article that I found a little bit earlier that talks about the benefits of sleep on your mental and physical health. So if you guys want to check that out later, it is in the link, and I will share that through our social media throughout the rest of the week as well. Aveen mentions she's laughing that 60 is considered cool when you live in California, but when you live in the UK, it's starting to feel warm. Now, for me, in Florida, I think 60 is frigid. At 60, I'm putting on extra blankets. I'm putting on a sweatshirt. We had 90-degree heat this past weekend. It's absolutely insane.
Oh no, I like, my bedroom could be 55 degrees all the time. I like it cold.
Yeah, I can't sleep in cold at all. I'm literally the opposite of you. I have to. Ours goes down to the coldest of about 73 degrees at night, and if it's any colder than that, for me, for my body, is disruptive. And there's lots of childhood trauma that actually goes with that we won't get into, but that's the thing is, what works for one person isn't going to work for somebody else. So if you're hearing anything that we're saying and you're like, nah, there is no way that would ever work for me, then don't do it.
Exactly.
Don't do it. Just find something that works for you.
Go back to the bathtub and bubble bath and chocolates. Maybe that'll work. That works for me on occasion, to tell you the truth.
So moving from sleep, then there's the other thing that everyone should be doing at least a little bit every day, and that's eating. So again, it's not something that you need to introduce into your self-care regimen because you should be eating already, but there are ways that you can make eating work better for you. So Claudia, why don't you talk briefly about the importance of nutrition in recovery?
Well, I think everybody who knows me will know that one of my huge passions is educating people about nutrition and how to eat, how to make and eat healthy, affordable meals. It's one of my life's missions to get people away from preservatives and store-bought ready-made food and just teach them that they can make things really simply and easily and very, very affordable. The reason why it's so important is, you are what you eat. If you put a bunch of junk in your body that your organs can't process, your stomach, your liver can't process it with preservatives, chemicals, all that stuff, it's going to come out and manifest in different ways. This is why we have so much disease and heart issues in this country. And this is why we have a prevalence of liver disease in this country, is because people are eating the wrong food. I'm not saying that you have to go out and become organic. I'm not saying go out and become a vegan. I'm saying make small changes. If you find that you're lagging in energy because you eat 3 giant meals a day, stop that practice and start eating smaller meals throughout the day. Start becoming a grazer and see if that suits your energy levels more. Remember, if you sit there and tuck in a huge meal, your body is going to become tired because all of the energy is going to break that food down. And if you're having bacon and eggs and toast and donuts in the morning and big jolts of coffee, which then make you crash energy-wise, maybe if that's not working for you, you say, you know what, I'm going to try and have a small bowl of oatmeal. And then I'm going to have 2 hours later, I'm going to have a banana and some nuts. And then a couple hours later, I'm going to have some protein or some vegetable, whatever. Maybe you try eating all day long. I find that when I only eat when I'm hungry and I listen to my body, what it needs, I eat the most healthy I can possibly eat. So when I feel like berries, I will eat berries. If I really crave eggs, something must be going on with my body. You have to learn to listen. And part of that also is staying hydrated. Hydration is so important. There's a myriad of things that are responsible for all of these complex feelings that we have: fatigue, muscle ache, backache, spikes in energy, headaches. People say, "Oh God, I said, when's the last time you drank water? Your whole body hurts, you're exhausted, and you have a headache. Well, when is the last time you drank water?" So first thing you have to do is ask yourself, how much water did I drink today? And what did I eat today? Well, eating a candy bar and a bite of somebody's sandwich is not it's not going to give you the sustenance to be productive and to be happy and to be healthy. And most importantly, this is your machine. This is what you use to do everything. So you want to be able to at least try to find a way to eat that works for your particular body. If your body doesn't like dairy or sugar, listen to it. There's a reason why. If you feel like you're getting a lot of inflammation, maybe you need to start figuring out what it is that you're putting in your body that's causing that inflammation. And these are things that just take mindfulness and time. And if you take that time to feed your body correctly and to listen to what it's telling you, believe me, it'll manifest in a much healthier thing, vessel.
Yeah, and it's the small things that really are the how to approach it, because whenever I have tried to completely overhaul my diet, I have always failed every single time.
It's too overwhelming. I tell people I tell them this, the soup mission. So maybe once a week you can make a big vat of soup, and that'll be your go-to thing for the week. Make it super healthy, lots of vegetables, some grains in there. If you want to make your own stock, it's really easy. Chicken carcasses or fish stock or vegetable stock, whatever. If not, you can just use store-bought, but make something wholesome, and then have a bit of that every day. It's cost effective and it's really good for your body, and you made it, so you know what's going into your body. People say, I don't have time to cook. I'll put together stuff that'll last me throughout the week, that I can, so it's those little changes of just making that small effort. It is the most important thing you have. It's your body, it's your health.
And that's another point that we'll go back to again. Self-care. Sometimes self-care is hard. Sometimes it's doing those things that are going to take a little bit more effort. but you know in the long run they're going to make you feel better. It's like crawling into bed exhausted at night and remembering that you forgot to brush your teeth. Yeah, it would be so much easier to just lay there. But you know that if you started to make a habit of that, then your oral health is declining. You're doing other things that in the long run do not serve you. And it does take effort, and it is hard, and it's not something that comes, it's sad that it doesn't come naturally, because this is something that really should come naturally. And I don't know if I can off the top of my head name a single person for whom self-care comes naturally. I don't know anybody.
Making tea comes naturally.
but it takes work. But it's something that you have to think about and you put effort into.
It's an effort that's joyous to me. Any sort of ritualized thing that brings me pleasure.
Well, you know me. That's what my morning coffee is. Yeah. But I make my 2 cups and I'm done for the day. And after that, it's, there's no more coffee, there's no caffeine. If I'm drinking tea, it's herbal. But in addition to the obvious physical health benefits, a poor diet can actually worsen feelings of anxiety and depression. Now, don't mishear this. Well, I'm not saying a poor diet can cause anxiety and depression, and I'm not saying that eating well can cure it. Though that's completely different. However, if you have anxiety and depression, which goes very hand in hand with addiction, and honestly, it seems these days it goes hand in hand with just being alive. A poor diet can actually take what you're already experiencing and make it worse.
Sure.
And again, I'll pop that source of where I found that in the chat, so that if anybody wants to look that up and read that article where that came from, you can do that.
So many people that talk to me about when they start getting away from alcohol on the Sinclair method, and they start having days when they're not drinking, and they will tell me that they are craving really good food. They're starting to make themselves salmon and eggs and leafy green vegetables. And one gal said to me, God, I'm just craving spinach and walnuts. And your body has been denied all these things. When you're drinking, that's why, people eat hamburgers and fast food and pizza and they eat lots of sugar and stuff. So yeah, when you start to get healthier, you listen to your body, you will see that your body will naturally ask you to feed it the right things. And that's the nice thing about the sort of restorative quality of a human body.
So we have covered so many things, and I think Claudia, I think we covered everything that we had initially mentioned before the broadcast. We've talked about sleep and nutrition. We've talked about disconnecting from outside distractions.
I'll share something, and I can just think about it, because I was thinking, how many self-care things have I done in the past 24 hours? Besides the tea, I made a fire last night, and I watched the fire for a while, and that made me feel really amazing. That was just normally you'd say, oh, I don't want to use up the wood, or I don't want to make a mess, and you just do it. I also picked some flowers at my mom's house, and I brought them home to my house and put them in a vase. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but that is an act of self-care, because it makes you happy when you look at them. So little things like that, once again, so that you don't put yourself under the pressure of saying, oh my God, I have to redo my bedroom for sleep, and I have to redo my diet for my thing, and I'm going to have to go, run that bubble bath. No, you just little things that are for you, that make you feel better. Get rid of the clutter in your closet. Go through that drawer that every time you open up your silverware drawer, it drives you crazy because you can't find anything. Declutter that. And when you open it, you're happy. It's those little things that's taking time to make your environment healthier and happier.
And just because someone else might consider that a chore, and somebody else might think, oh, well, that's working, if it makes you feel better, then absolutely. I mean, I can't wait till we start getting some rain here in Florida so I can go mow my yard. Because for me, when I'm mowing the lawn, when I'm doing yard work, I'm making my environment feel more inviting and welcoming for myself. And there's also a sense of seeing immediate results. I'm a terribly impatient person, which makes what Claudia and I do very difficult because we're literally trying to change a 100-year-old system, and we are trying to tackle something that is worldwide and literally killing people. That's a pretty overwhelming problem. And no amount of work, if we could find ways to work 24 hours a day doing nothing but promoting the Sinclair method, we still wouldn't be able to do it all. When we take that time to stop and say, okay, I can't do everything today, so what can I do to recenter myself? And for me, doing yard work is awesome because when I'm out there, sometimes I'll put my Spotify on to have some music, but other than that, I'm not looking at email. I'm not reading Facebook. I'm not doing all of those other things. I'm doing something that is productive, that I can see immediate results for, which then makes me feel like, if nothing else, I've accomplished something and brought something to completion.
Well, mowing the grass is very zen. It really is. It is a meditation. And if I had a grass, I would definitely want to mow it.
Yeah, Kelly mentions she's got an electric mower. We actually just switched to an electric mower a couple of years ago as well, and it's so quiet. It's great because I'm out. Not only am I out there, now I can mow the lawn and I can hear the birds while I'm mowing, which is incredible. So whatever you do for self-care doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to uproot your entire routine. And I'm sorry, everybody, I don't know what's causing the video to keep glitching. It's only on my side, which makes me think that it's something to do with my video camera itself. And I keep seeing it. I know if it's bugging me, it's probably bugging you guys.
Like I'm a Harry Potter movie.
But
sort of time warp thing.
Yeah, but do something small. Self-care doesn't have to be big, as long as it's something that is meaningful and makes you feel more recharged. Because if you're bringing down your stress level, you're seeing things more clearly, you're able to make better decisions. If you are in recovery, less stress translates to fewer triggers to drinking, because stress is a drinking trigger. And so it's one of the best things that you can really do for yourself.
Yep. Ain't that the truth? Does anybody have any questions out there?
Tell us some more of what you guys are doing for self-care. I see, Aveen says that she hopes you gave your mom's dog a cuddle.
Sophie, yeah. I'm gonna go see her again tomorrow. She's finally calming down. She's a puppy, so. And I was going to say earlier that playing with animals is an act of self-care as well. Taking the time to really sit down with your cat or dog or budgie or goldfish and try and communicate with it, pet it, groom it, stroke it, is just that's a moment of self-care as well. You're stepping away from stepping away from everything else and communicating with another living being, whether it's a hamster or your snake or whatever it is. And that is a beautiful moment of self-care. Plus, your animal friend will appreciate it and be healthier for your attention.
And JM is actually cutting dead pieces off of patio plants while listening right now. So that's that doubling up on the self care.
You see, you're going to be able to look out there and say, "Wow, that looks great," and that'll spark a little bit of joy and dopamine in your brain. So
absolutely. Nat spends time with rodents, although sadly one of them's got to go to the vet tomorrow. I have two cats, a dog, a turtle, and a chicken. I've got pets galore. It's nowhere near the zoo that it used to be, but one of my cats in particular, Bob, not the one that crashed the talk a couple months ago, but my other one. When I'm working at home and I'm here in the closed door home office, if I've been in here too long without getting up and this is another self-care thing that I'm horrible at, and my wife yells at me about it all the time. If you sit at a desk for hours at a time, just get up and walk across the house, even if it only takes 30 seconds, because just getting the blood flowing
it's really
is huge, and it will help recenter you. But I'll see a little paw stick under the door, and he'll grab under the door, and it'd be like, okay, are you trying to rescue me from work right now?
Yeah.
and that's what he's doing. He's trying to rescue me from the office, saying, hey, Mom, time to come pet my belly, because I have cats that want their bellies rubbed. It's funny, but yeah, it's all of these little tiny things, they add up. And when you start to, now that you've sat here and listened to this, now you're going to start looking for and noticing all of those little ways where you are already practicing even momentary self-care. And my challenge to you would be, instead of trying to overhaul your life and start adding in a whole bunch of other self-care things based on recommendations, take what you're already doing that's already working for you and build on them.
Yeah. Unless you're eating a lot of fast food.
Well, what you're doing for self-care, fast food is probably, and trust me, I in my younger years, especially because I worked in fast food. I've worked in the food industry for a long time. But I had a job where I would go to the same McDonald's for my lunch break, mainly because it was the only place I could get to and back during my lunch break. And one night I came a little bit earlier because someone else had their shift changed and my lunch break came earlier. And when I pulled into the drive-thru, the person at the window said, "Wow, you're early tonight. I didn't realize it was you." Talk about a moment of reckoning when the McDonald's drive-thru person recognizes you and your order based on what time and day you come by to get it.
Your poor body was getting the same thing.
I was horrified, and it made me stop and think, wow, this is not serving me well. And so at that point, I realized that maybe I needed to put a little bit more effort into making my lunch and bringing it with me, or finding something a little more healthy than eating a double cheeseburger at McDonald's every day.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those wake-up calls where I didn't even realize that. And Walter says, "Hey, I've gotten that from liquor store clerks."
Oh gosh. Walter, let me tell you something. I remember doing the Oh, I've been to that supermarket 3 times this week, so now I have to go to another supermarket. And then I ended up driving, miles away from my home, so I wouldn't hit the same liquor stores. And then you go into a liquor store, and you say, oh, this is for my husband, or oh yeah, I'm making a Grand Marnier soufflés tonight, so I have to buy a bottle of. I mean, the lies. Oh my gosh, it's such a feeling of freedom when you don't have that continual um, energy spent trying to acquire a substance. You have time on your hands, and all of those lame excuses, and the embarrassment in front of the clerk, yeah, who recognizes you. Oh, same 6-pack, or did you want that bottle of vodka again? I mean, yeah.
And the crazy thing is,
I hear you.
They're not trying to be judgmental.
No,
they're just trying to be helpful. But it
friendly.
hits something inside you that says, "How did I get here? Let me just stop and contemplate all of my life decisions that led me to this moment."
Oh, I remember there was a liquor store in London when I lived in London, and I went in there, and the owner of the liquor store said to me, he said, oh, I ended up having to buy that cider that you like, so I bought extra so that you can get it here. And I was like, oh my God, he's special ordering cider because I come in here and get it so often. Yeah, that's kind of a sign things are getting out of control at that point. Yeah. So I'm all into supporting my local businesses, but not the liquor stores anymore.
Yeah. So Kelly asks, besides intimacy and exercise, what are some dopamine shots, which I'm taking as a quick hit of dopamine that can be infused into life?
Besides intimacy and exercise, I find, I do take doses of nature, and that's something that really works well for me. I definitely get a high off of, I know this sounds crazy, but out of baking. As I'm baking, it's a meditation, and then when I'm smelling the baking, it's a dopamine hit, and then when I see the finished product, and it's beautiful, and then of course when I taste it. New experiences for me are big dopamine things. So I've tried every single weekend during COVID. My partner and I go to a different place. And that's something that gives me a big dopamine rush, just seeing something different, whether it's a library you walk around, a college campus that's closed down, a new park, a new place to ride your bicycle, little bits of whatever it is. I know things are closed and that's difficult, but just changing things up. And there are places that will allow you on the grounds, and you'd be surprised what you can find in your own neighborhoods. I've lived here since the early 80s, and I'm still finding new things all the time. So step out of your comfort zone. That can also give you a little bit of a dopamine hit. And I hate to say it, but I'm a real estate and Airbnb, I wouldn't say addict, but I really enjoy looking at it. It gives me a hit of dopamine, looking at houses online and looking at Airbnb places where I could fantasy stay.
So it's the potential. It's the dreaming of potential.
It's the fantasy. So I call it real estate porn or Airbnb or trip porn. And then, so what I do is I'll say, oh, I want to go to, I've never been to Sweden, for instance. So I'll research a whole Swedish trip. And I'll plan everything. I'll look at the Airbnb places to stay in Sweden, which cities I want to go to, where I want to eat. And it's a fantasy. I get it. I'm not in Sweden, but it gives me a huge rush. And who knows, someday that's on my bucket list. Maybe I'll get to Sweden. And now I've done a little bit of research.
Yeah, planning our vacation, which is hopefully still going to be on in October. Please, by October, let this be possible. My wife and I are planning a trip to Vancouver for our 15th anniversary. We're going a little early because the rates in October as opposed to November, and the weather is a little bit better. But I experienced a lot of the same things that you just mentioned. Just looking at the different places to stay, researching the different suburbs of downtown Vancouver, and what are the restaurants, and what are the little coffee shops, and the sushi bars, and what's going on, and what walking paths are near, and what parks can we go visit, and the act of just researching all of that and putting all the plans in place. Now, hopefully, again, October. This is a long time away. Hopefully, by then, travel will be possible. I hope to not have to postpone this, but we know it's always a possibility these days. But yeah, planning future events
brings joy.
It really does. And another thing is laughter.
Yeah.
Laughter is so good for us because it increases those pleasure endorphin and dopamine receptor feelings, and it's something that brings us joy. I mean, it's hard to be around somebody who is joyously laughing and not also feel some of that joy yourself, and part of that is connection, building good, healthy connections.
You know, a great way to do that, and it's free. Set up a Zoom or a FaceTime with one of your friends and do what I do. We make dinner. We make and eat our dinners together. So I'll have because COVID, we haven't been able to see each other. So I have a couple of friends. Well, you want to have dinner Wednesday night? And we say, yes, we'll have dinner. And so both of us will prepare our meals. Well, we're walking around the kitchen, and then we'll sit down together and chat and laugh and have a good time. And we're eating our dinner and telling each other what we've prepared. And it's just fun. It's like you're sitting down in a restaurant. So that's another thing that I do that definitely sparks dopamine and keeps me connected to people, since we've all been so isolated lately, like crazy. So there's all these ideas you can do, and that's self-care as well, reconnecting with friends. And that's very important because we haven't been able to see our friends, but thanks to technology, there are ways that we can do that.
Yeah, and Kelly says, comfort zone advice, getting out of that, struggling with opening up the receptors to good stuff. Getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
In safe ways, you don't have to jump into scary, terrifying, out of your comfort zone things, because that can be crazy. That could be more stressful. But Jess says she makes travel guides for places she wants to go. And, and Nat said, in addition to what you said about having dinner together over Zoom, you can watch a film over Zoom, watch something that you can both watch, and just any way that you can connect and make
Absolutely.
good, deep connections, because those will continue. That connection is also a form of self-care, because we do need other people.
Yeah.
We do. And that can be very difficult for a lot of people. Some of us have been brought up in a fiercely independent mindset. There are people who grow up believing that if they can't do everything on their own, that's failure. And that's not true. We need other people. We don't necessarily need a lot of other people, but the people who are in our lives, who we choose to have in our lives, we create our own family of people from the people we meet and the people that we connect with. And that is so important to our well-being.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other questions out there? I love that the chat has been so great today. You guys are wonderful. For me, sitting here watching the chat while I'm talking with Claudia, I love seeing you guys get involved, because that means that what we're doing and what we're talking about is important, and that it's helping you, that it's likely to help other people who are watching the replay. Walter has mentioned, for anyone who's watching but doesn't have the chat up, Walter has put in the link for the daily TSM support meetings.
Nice.
7 days a week.
Yep.
You have access to an online TSM support Zoom. It's free anywhere in the world. Embody Daily hosts it, but there are a lot of volunteers that help run and facilitate those meetings, and like so many people have found that that's a great way to connect with peer support, to be able to talk with and support one another, and to get support as well. So definitely, if you haven't checked those out, please do. Lynn is saying the meetings are awesome and that they're saving her. And that's why they're there.
Yep. And that is an act of self-care, getting back to that.
Absolutely.
You're not only doing it for yourself, but you're hopefully giving support to other people, which is another act of self-care. And it's a feel-good thing, to be able to lift someone else up who's had a bad experience, or who didn't comply, or had a rough night drinking, and to be able to tell them not to beat themselves up, and to love them and give them support, and tell them to get back on the on the horse. All of that is going to make you feel wonderful.
Encouraging other people is definitely it's one of those connection self-care points, and I can't even tell you how many people over the years have said, I reached extinction years ago and I'm still in these groups because it brings me such joy to help other people.
It does. Well, that's why you and I keep doing this. There's something about someone saying, wow, I have my life back. That is an endorphin rush. That's something joyful, saying we touch somebody's lives. So you can do the same. Everybody that's listening right now can do something beautiful for somebody else, and that is an act of self-care for you. So we are all important, and we're all part of the big wheel of life, and we can all offer something to somebody, and however small or large it is, it makes a difference.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Claudia, for another wonderful chat. This has been great. Pretty much everything that I was hoping that we would cover and more. So we will have this available for replay, and we also have our student intern is starting the task of going through some of these videos and creating smaller segments so that we can put those on our YouTube and share segmented topics from within the chats, so that if there's something that stuck out to you and maybe you don't want to go through an hour and a half worth of video to find that 3 minutes worth of what was mentioned, we're going to start having those available soon. If there was anything from today that in particular that stood out that you would love to see in a smaller little clip, you can either, if you're on Twitch and you have the app, you should be able to clip directly from our stream. Otherwise, you can always email me or use the contact form on the C3 Foundation website and say, hey, you guys talked about nutrition in self-care. Can you isolate that clip so that I can see that again, or tell me what minute that started at? Always feel free to reach out to us. We are always here, and we're doing this because we want to build the community and support system for you, and we want to have a continuation of the body of support and information out there for people on the Sinclair method, because 8 years ago there was Roy Escapa's book, and there was Roy Escapa's book, and that was really it. And so we're doing everything we can to try to get more Sinclair method information, more Sinclair method recovery support out into the world for free. So if you're on Amazon Prime, you can actually subscribe to our channel for free, and that will help support our station, and that will help us continue to be able to do more of these streams. And so you can hit the follow and like and all of that. If you would like to donate, there is a donate button on our Twitch page, on our About section. So we do appreciate any time someone is able to donate. If you can't, just literally just following our channel is wonderful support. We love that you guys are here. Next week we have, wow, I'm blanking on what we have coming up next week. I know you're with us next week again, right, Claudia?
Yeah, next week is, excuse me, folks, very unprofessional of us. Building TSM.
Oh, support systems.
Building TSM support.
Yes. Yes, building support. So peer support, coaching, therapy, doctors, family, friends. We'll go into all of that next week. Aveen, thank you. Aveen has gifted a tier 1 subscription.
Oh, thank you.
So that was very sweet. So we're going to talk about support and build on those connection pieces. That it's actually pretty convenient that we ended on that this week, since we're going into that next week. And we'll look at how support can actually not only enhance your recovery in general, but how having a strong support system can help you succeed on the Sinclair method, sometimes a little faster.
Yeah.
So we'll go into all of that. So you can get your questions ready. You can email them in advance. You can, you can come armed with them next week and pop them through the chat. It's all good. We're just glad that you are taking time out of your week on Wednesdays to spend a little time with us. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks, everybody. It was great to see you. And if anybody's interested in becoming a Crusader, reach out to the contact page on C3 Foundation, and we'll send you the information. I look forward to seeing you again next week.
All right. Bye, everybody. Take care of yourself.
Yes, self-care.